Om Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Mritangamaya Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Let us offer our salutations to Sri Ramakrishna, to Lord Krishna, the Supreme Lord of the Universe, the embodiment of peace and bliss, who came to establish dharma and punish the wicked. Let us pray to him to lead us from unreal to real, to lead us from the darkness of ignorance to the light of knowledge, to lead us from death to immortality. We have been studying Bhagavad Gita. We have completed chapter 5. Now we are starting chapter 6. That is the yoga of meditation. All the spiritual teachings given by Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita are designated as yogas because all these instructions lead the person towards the Divine Lord. So anything that takes you towards the Supreme Lord of the Universe, that is considered as yoga. And Sri Krishna has clearly explained how to develop renunciation, how to get rid of one's desires bothering the mind all the time, and how one must get rid of the most deceiving worldly nature. As long as the person is worldly and runs after the things of the world recklessly, such a person is bound to suffer, and he will not find the path of yoga which leads the person to the divine. So it requires long time for the people to realize that really I am going in a wrong path. I must go in a spiritual way. Then the person should decide how to go, whom to approach, and how to have one-pointed devotion to practice spirituality. All these things are important when you practice spirituality. So Sri Krishna emphasizes once again that the yogi or sannyasin is one who has renounced the fruits of actions, not the actions themselves. To understand it in an ordinary language, those who do selfless service, not seeking any personal desires, just for the love of God, they are really men who have renounced actions. Not the actions themselves. Everybody does action. But the attitude is important. With what attitude you are doing action, that is important. Machine also do action more efficiently than us. But do you call them yogis? No. So yogi is one who uses the intellect in the right direction and does it for the love of God. The idea of engaging oneself in karma is to purify the mind. Purification of the mind is the main thing in spiritual practice. So, the performance of actions without an eye on their fruits brings about the purification of the mind. Only a purified mind, that is, a mind which is freed from the botheration of desires, can engage itself in constant meditation on the Atman within. Desire gives rise to imagination or sankalpa, which drives the soul into the field of action. Therefore, none can realize permanent freedom and tranquility of mind without renouncing desires. Again and again this point has been stressed by all these Mahatmas who have realized the divine. Sri Ramakrishna also tells many times in the Gospel, get rid of those desires. They are the stumbling block in the realization. That means the lower self must be controlled by the higher self. All the lower impulses of the body, mind and senses must be controlled by the power of the higher self. Then the higher self becomes one's friend. He who has perfect control of the body, mind and senses and is united with God sees God in all objects and beings. He sees inwardly that there is no difference between gold and stone, between friends and enemies, between righteous and unrighteous. It is perfectly harmonized. We can see in the life of Sri Ramakrishna. He will hold on his hand both the coins and the mud. Taka mati, taka mati mud. So he would repeat that several times. That is the way. Now Sri Krishna gives now practical hints as to the practice of meditation. One should really know the technique of meditation. Of course, people are struggling, no doubt, trying to meditate upon. But still, 90% of the people would not be able to meditate properly because of the restlessness of the mind. They know it very definitely. Mind is, and it becomes more restless when you are sitting for meditation. Ordinarily you won't feel that restlessness at all. You feel you are perfectly alright. But when you sit and try to look into the mind, then mind shows its real form to you. That's the way it is. So, Lord Krishna suggests here that one should select a secluded spot where there is no likelihood of disturbance. And that's very important. Once I had been to New Jersey. A devotee had invited and I had gone there. And of course she had seen Bhashyanji also. And morning prayer, she said at such and such a time there is prayer. I made it a point to attend the prayer. So, what priority we give in our life, that's most important. So, when I went there, at the correct time for attending the prayer, and she started doing her own usual way of prayer. In the meantime, phone call came. She stopped all of a sudden, whatever she is doing, she stopped and ran towards the phone. I was shocked to see that. What is this? Can she not wait? Can she not go and pick up the phone afterwards? This is called restlessness. That means other things get priority than your spiritual practices. No. Spiritual practice must be taken first priority. That itself is not there. Without grit, without strong determination, without strong willpower, it is rather impossible to practice meditation. So, Lord Krishna is telling you here, go to a secluded place. That means where there is no access for anybody else to peep in. Just instruct people around. Don't disturb at this time. Actually, there was one devotee in Bangalore. I still remember his name also. Glen Overton, his name. Glen Overton. He was the disciple of Swami Chidananda. Very devoted. And he would come. Glen is near Ganges. I saw that. That person would come all the way to Bangalore, stay in the ashrama for about a month or so, then would come back. Every year he would come. Then he suggested Swamiji, I want to build a cottage here so that I can devote my whole time undisturbed by any other thing. Swamiji said, all right, do it. Because we had a good land also. So he built a cottage. Actually it's called Overton Cottage. Even now they call it the Overton Cottage. Now that cottage is used for when President Maharaj comes, he would stay there. And he would spend hours together sitting there, meditation. And all around there were woods. No disturbance at all. Absolutely no disturbance. So he enjoyed that, and he would tell Swamiji also overwhelmingly, Swamiji, I taste spiritual life in Bangalore ashram, like that he would say. Anyway, Sri Krishna is suggesting you to select a secluded spot where there is no likelihood of disturbance. He should arrange his meditation, sit properly, and sit in a comfortable posture with the head, neck and spine erect but not tensed. Do it in a relaxed way. He should fix his purified mind on the Atman by concentrating between the eyebrows or on the tip of the nose. You know, there are various spiritual centers are there. All the centers are quite authentic. One can focus the mind on heart center, different centers, mostly heart center. Then Sri Krishna says another important point which probably all of you may feel difficult but should be done, and that is practice of celibacy. It is absolutely necessary if one is to succeed in meditation, because by practicing celibacy you are conserving the energy. Your vital energy is not dissipated, is not wasted. So the conservation and transformation of the vital fluid into spiritual energy gives immense power of concentration. Then, fearlessness too is an essential quality on the spiritual path. It is faith in the sustaining protection and grace of God. The aspirant is advised to practice moderation in his daily habits, eating, sleeping, recreation, etc. Everything should be moderate. Extremes are to be avoided as they hinder the practice of meditation. Living a life of such moderation and gathering up all his forces and directing them towards meditation upon the Atman within, the aspirant gradually transcends the senses and intellect and would be able to merge himself in the blissful Atman. He finds that the bliss of the Atman is incomparable, that there is no gain greater than the self. Having thus attained perfect union with the self, the yogi no more descends into ignorance or delusion. It is all over. He does not relish any more the pleasures of the senses. It is the pleasures that distract the mind. But we have to have a check. We have to use our intellect to see the mind doesn't run after them. Lord Krishna again emphasizes that the concentration of the mind on the Atman should be like a steady flame in a windless place. This ultimately leads to the vision of the Lord in all beings and creatures. Arjun is doubtful whether it is all possible to engage the mind steadily on the higher self, as its very nature seems to be one of restlessness. Shri Krishna assures him that the practice can succeed through vairagya and constant effort. Abhyasa. Viveka, abhyasa. Both. Vairagya means dispassion. Arjuna wishes to know the fate of the aspirant who fails to realize the Supreme in spite of his faith and sincerity. Shri Krishna assures that the aspirant's efforts will not go in vain, that the accumulated power of his yogic practices will assure him a better birth in the future with more favorable conditions for sadhana. The aspirant will then be compelled to carry on his yogic practices with greater vigor and faith, and finally he will achieve God realization. It's a constant practice, constant moving forward on the spiritual path. Then Shri Krishna concludes that the yogi, one who has attained union with Supreme Lord, he is superior to the ascetics, to the men of book knowledge and the men of action, as the latter have not transcended ignorance and merged in the self. So, the person who has experienced the glory of the Atman is unparalleled. We can see the life of Ramana Maharshi, who really was practicing Advaita Vedanta, and finally he got the realization of his own true self. And that was over. The final goal of the spiritual life is achieved. So that is the summary of this chapter 6. Now we shall go to the verses. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha Anaschita karma phalam karyam karma karoti yaha Sa sannyasi cha yogi cha na niragnina chakriyaha. Lord Krishna says, one who performs the prescribed duty without seeking its fruit is a sannyasi and a karma yogi, not the one who merely does not light the sacred fire and does not work. That means in olden times performing Vedic rituals was nitya karma, was to be done. So from that point of view, Sri Krishna is telling, simply not lighting the sacred fire, we can't conclude that he is a man of renunciation. Among men, the yogi and the sannyasi cannot be regarded as different. Rightly viewed, the two are indeed but one. Apart from the apparent difference of name, even yoga itself is sannyas. Seen in the light of the self, there is no difference between these. As different names may be given to the same man, as two roads may lead to the same place, as different vessels may be filled with the same kind of water, so should we regard this apparent difference between yoga and sannyas. Arjun, he is considered by all to be a true yogi, who, while performing actions, yet he is not desirous of their fruit. His main object is not to seek the benefit of his action. When he is not seeking personal benefit, it paves the way for spiritual benefit. That's the meaning of volunteer service. You come and do without any kind of expectation. It should be without any expectation. Then you will see, you will be advancing more and more in spiritual life. That's the beauty of Nishkam Karma. Just as the earth naturally produces vegetation without any awareness of itself and does not look forward to the grain that grows, similarly, the yogi performs actions whenever occasion demands according to his circumstances and situations. Just do it, that's all. That we can see, particularly in India, where Ramakrishna Mission is carrying extensive relief works. And everybody is astonished at the way the mission is doing work. All the governments, whatever government may come, any party may come to the government, everyone is fully aware the type of service being done by Ramakrishna Mission. With 100% Nishkam Karma. So, with that attitude, one can do activities more efficiently, more perfectly, and such a person looks upon work as worship. Every item of work he considers himself as worship. He does what is right, but he has no egoism in his nature, nor does he set his heart on the fruit of action. Of course, in the beginning, the egoism comes in some form or other. But God is so great and is so gracious in the sense He will crush your ego. But at that point of crushing the ego, one must be able to sustain it. That strength God Himself should give. Such a person is a true yogi. He is most surely a master of yoga. He does not do actions contrary to dharma. He does not do sinful actions. He does actions helpful to others. He loves to serve mankind. Such a person, having this attitude, is said to be a true sannyasi. Such a person, though be a family person, should be considered as a sannyasi. He gets the same spiritual achievement as that of the true sannyasi. Such a person is adorable to the society. You take the example of Nag Mahashaya. If you have not read, please read his life. Fantastic life. A family man. But how he was devoted to Sri Ramakrishna. Mother. When he would come to see Holy Mother, he was full of emotion. He could not even walk. People were afraid he may fall. So much filled with emotion he would come and touch the feet of the mother. Mother was very gracious and she would give prasadam to him to eat, and he was so full of focus on the mother. He would eat everything along with the leaf. People were amazed to see that position. And mother would say, Holy Mother would say, such devotion is unparalleled. Tremendous devotion. A true sannyasi. His mind is full of Sri Ramakrishna, nothing else but Sri Ramakrishna. Tyaga, the sacrificing nature, is called sannyasa. Tranquil state of the mind is called yoga. Both these are present in one who does selfless service. Verse number 2, Yam sanyasamiti prahu yogam tam vidhi pandava nahya sanyasta sankalpo yogi bhavati kaschana. Arjun, know that to be the karma yoga which they call sannyasa. No one becomes a karma yogi who has not renounced the selfish motive behind an action. The innermost element of sannyasa is also present in karma yoga. For a true sannyasi, like a true karma yogi, is non-agitated by desire. Non-agitated by desire. The true karma yogi is not stirred by any impulse for reward or fruit of action. That is, sankalpa should be renounced. All selfish planning, all egoistic programs of work must the true yogi renounce. For they all are born of ignorance, are born out of a feeling that I am the doer, that I should go. Then God will accept you. The true karma yogi eliminates the I, egoism. That's called ahankar. So what the Lord emphasizes is this: it is not work or action which has to be renounced, but the sankalpa, the formative will, which has its own aims and plans, its own path, which seeks not the Atman but power to shape the environment and please the personal self and win applause of others. The way to true yoga is not in this action prompted by the ego, but in disinterested, selfless action. And in this path, meditation is a great help. Arurukshor muner yogam karma karana muchyate yogarudasya tasyaiva shamak karana muchyate. For a sage who wants to attain yoga, of meditation or the equanimity of mind. Karma yoga is said to be the means. For the one who has attained yoga, serenity is said to be the means. He who would climb to heights of yoga walks the way of disinterested action. When he is enthroned in yoga, enters into union with God, action is no longer needed by him. All his acts fall from him as falling of the ripened fruit. He acts as one who acts not, but through whom works the operating, not this individual self. That also Sri Ramakrishna tells in the Gospel. In his life also you can see. Everything is done by Divine Mother. Everything is done by her, through this body. Whatever is coming out of Sri Ramakrishna is nothing but the words coming from Divine Mother Kali herself. Very emphatically, many times repeatedly, Sri Ramakrishna has said that. That means total identification with the Divine Mother. He would never say I, he would always say thou, thou. And if he has to refer to his body, he would say this body. He would never say my body. He was very hesitant to utter the word I and mine. Such a sage works for the welfare of suffering humanity, Loka Sangraha, but in serenity. He has no craving for self-seeking activity. His work does not spring from sankalpa. He does not seek to impose his own formative will upon the course of events. His work is beautifully blended with meditation. To practice Jnana Yoga, selfless activity of Karma Yoga is the way. After well established in Jnana Yoga, for getting steadiness, serenity, which releases him from karma, is the way. For crossing the river, boat is the way. After crossing the river, giving up the boat is the way. So also, for attaining wisdom, karma is the means. After achieving knowledge, for making it stable, giving up karma is the means. Just as you get rid of boat. So, in order to step into the practice of Jnana Yoga, one will have to purify the mind by practicing Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga is meant for purification of the mind. After the attainment of knowledge, karma drops by itself. You don't have to worry about it. It falls by itself. Yada hi nendriyartheshu na karma svanushajyate sarvasankalpa sannyasi yoga arudastadochyade. When a person is not attached to the sense objects or to actions, having renounced all sankalpas, that is egoistic purposes, then he is said to be enthroned in yoga. Enthroned in yoga. That is called yoga arudaha. When a yogin, keeping the mind steadfast, feels no attachment for the objects of the senses such as sound, etc., nor thinks that he has to do any action, whether nitya karma, obligatory, or naimittika, obligatory and incidental, or kamya, done with a motive, or pratisiddha, forbidden by law, regarding it as of no use to him. And when he has learned to habitually renounce all thoughts which give rise to desires for objects of this world and of the next, then he is said to have become yoga rudha, to be one who has attained to yoga. He doesn't want anything else but to identify himself with the divine. That's all. The words renouncing all thoughts imply that all desires as well as actions should be renounced. For all desires spring from thoughts, as the Smriti says, verily desires springs from the thought. Thought means sankalpa. And of sankalpa, yajnas are born. In Shanti Parva Mahabharata it is said, O desire, I know where your root lies. You are born of thought. I shall not think of you, and you shall cease to exist as well as your root. On the abandonment of all desires, the abandonment of all actions necessarily follows, as passage in the Shruti Brihadaranyaka Upanishad says, whatever forms the object of desire, that he wills, and whatever he wills, that he acts. Reasoning also leads to the same conclusion. For surrendering all thoughts, one cannot move at all. Wherefore, by saying that the aspirant should renounce all thoughts, Lord Krishna implies that he should abandon all desires and all actions as well. When a person has attained to yoga, then the self is raised by the self from out of the numerous evils of samsara. So the next verse, very important, Lord Krishna says, Uddared Atmanatmanam Natmanam Avasadayet Atmeva Khyatmano Bandhu Atmeva Vipratmana. That is, let a person lift himself by his own self. Let him not degrade himself, for this mind alone is one's friend as well as one's enemy. So you must know how mind plays most important and crucial role in everyone's life. So taking care of the mind is most important. So the worldly life, its involvement, allurements is compared to ocean. Money, family, friends, relations are its whirling waves. Passion, anger, greed, delusion, egoism and jealousy are its dangerous alligators. This ocean contains sharks of diseases. Hunger, thirst are splashing upon one another. Besides, fire of various calamities occur frequently. Terrible grief at the separation of loved ones snatch away the power of right discrimination. The mind drowned in this ocean of worldliness must be raised up. That means one should give up indulging in the senseless play of the senses and fix his mind on the divine within. So one should be careful from drowning inadvertently into this terrible worldly life. A Goswami who came to visit Sri Ramakrishna asked a question, Sir, the chanting of God's name is enough. The scriptures emphasize the sanctity of God's name for the Kali Yuga is most efficacious. Sri Ramakrishna said, yes, that's true. There is no doubt about the sanctity of God's name. But can a mere name achieve anything without the yearning love of the devotion behind it? One should feel great restlessness of soul for the vision of God. Suppose a man repeats the name of God mechanically, while his mind is absorbed in the worldly pursuits, lust and gold. Can he achieve anything? Mere muttering of magic words doesn't cure one of the pain of a spider or scorpion sting. One must also apply the smoke of burning cow dung. Then Goswami again tells, but what about Ajamil? He was a great sinner. There was no sin he had not indulged in, but he uttered the name of Narayan on his deathbed, calling his son, who also had that name, and thus he was liberated. How that could happen? Sri Ramakrishna replied, well, perhaps Ajamila had done many spiritual things in his past births. It is also said that he once practiced austerity. Besides, those were the last moments of his life. What's the use of giving an elephant a bath? It will cover itself with dirt and dust again and become its former self. But if someone removes the dust from its body and gives it a bath just before it enters the stable, then the elephant remains clean. Suppose a man becomes pure by chanting the holy name of God, but immediately afterwards commits many sins. That means he has no strength of mind. He doesn't take a vow not to repeat his sins. A bath in the Ganges undoubtedly absolves one of all sins. But what does that avail? They say that the sins perch on the trees along the bank of the Ganges. No sooner does the man come back from the holy waters than the old sins jump on his shoulders from the trees. The same old sins take possession of him again. He is hardly out of the water before they fall upon him. Therefore I say, Sri Ramakrishna said, chant the name of the God and with it pray to him that you may have love for him. Pray to God that your attachment to such transitory things as wealth, name, creature comforts may become less and less every day. Try to practice contentment. The rishis of old, ancient times attained the knowledge of Brahman. One cannot have this so long as there is a slightest trace of worldliness. How hard the rishis labored. Early in the morning they would go away from the hermitage and would spend the whole day in solitude meditating on Brahman. At night they would return to the hermitage and eat a little fruit or roots. They kept their minds aloof from the objects of sight, hearing, touch and other things of a worldly nature. Only thus did they realize Brahman as their own inner consciousness. But in the Kali Yuga, man being totally dependent on food for life cannot altogether shake off the idea that he is the body. In this state of mind, it is not proper for him to say, I am he. When a man does all sorts of worldly things, he should not say, I am Brahman. Those who cannot give up attachment to worldly things and who find no means to shake off the feelings of I, what should they do? They should rather cherish the idea, I am God's servant. I am his devotee. So, one can also realize God by following the path of devotion. The substance is, one should minimize desires, particularly harmful desires. Desiring to know God is not considered as desire in the ordinary sense of the term. So that is exception. That desire is welcome. So desire for spiritual life is welcome. So desire for worldly way of life should be abandoned. The more you hanker after worldly way of life, you cannot escape from the effect, consequent effect of miseries and sufferings. For a little bit of joy, what amount of suffering one has to go. But that's how the world is going on. Very few people will realize that this is not the way I should go. I should turn to spiritual life. But by the time that awakening comes, his lifespan is almost over. And if the desire is not strong enough, again he will be born as a person in the worldly environment. So if a person continuously engages oneself in spiritual sadhanas, honestly and sincerely, that creates a strong formative will which helps him in next birth, not necessarily in the present life. To achieve the result in the present life itself, one should undertake spiritual sadhana very intensely, following meticulously all the instructions given by the Guru, and proceed with spiritual sadhana with remarkable patience. That's the way. Surrender to God and carry on everything as the God's work. If you have this attitude, even the family life is sublimated. That's how we should practice spirituality wherever we are. What is needed is we must connect ourselves to the divine. So to keep constant touch with the divine, it is very necessary that we should have satsang. That is, coming to ashrama regularly, participating in its activities, and contributing your selfless service. They are all part of the sadhana. Then in course of time you will find the most precious gift of God, and that is you experience tremendous peace and joy in yourself. Let us stop here. Om Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. Let us offer our salutations to Lord Krishna, the embodiment of bliss, who came to establish dharma and punish the wicked. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto all.